appointed, and it worked out. Communication department, you're going to be hearing from one of the past chairs of that, one of the real Elvis experts in this nation, and that's John Bakke, who has been absent for several years. Dr. Bakke is with us today, so we're always looking for something enlightening there. He is a person who is sort of reclusive about his knowledge as far as writing anything or that, but has appeared in many, many panels, and of course is a source for many of the writers who have been writing about Elvis and Sam Phillips and folks like that. And he was one of the original people, part of that committee back in 1979 when nothing had been done. In 78, they decided we need to do something and began this, as well as our Distinguished Achievement Award, which last year went to the Barcades, and this year is going to the Queen of the Blues and Joyce Cobb, and that event will take place on September 17th, running around town. We would invite you to get a ticket to that at the Rendezvous and mingle with the music icons of Memphis and honor our latest inductee into the Distinguished Achievement Award, the Great Performing Arts that is given in Elvis Presley's name, and that was certainly the only award that was ever given at that time, and maybe the only one still. I don't know. Grace and Bartel, that's very nice of them. We're, of course, great friends with them, and because of that, we have the only Presley Scholars in the universe that I'm aware of. They have endowed, and some of you have helped in doing that, your generous gifts, a scholarship in Elvis Presley's name that goes to 3 individuals each year, one in the communication department, and then one in, of course, the Private School of Music, which is another unit of this organization, where you can study everything from classical music, popular music, become a producer, engineer, whatever you like, music historian. And one goes to the theater department, which is what we're in, of course, at this moment. The other 2 units that I didn't mention along the line are journalism, which is a very important part, and they do a lot of the broadcast things, and you'll hear elements from that and see people around the country. And finally, of course, there is the Art Museum of the University itself. So that's not open. Usually I invite you to go over and see the wonderful works that are there, but unfortunately on Sunday they're closed, and so that is not available to you. WUMR will be broadcasting this event, and we have David Sachs from WUMR back here running the audio board, and I would encourage you to take a look out in the lobby when you go out there to display cases that are there. David is a very unique individual, great DJ and great collector, but he is a superb collector of stamps. And he is the person who has been in the newspapers recently, getting 2 sheets of the new Elvis stamp 48 hours before they were released. And he managed to do that, and you can probably get that story basically by calling around to various post offices and finding one that caught on and was supposed to do that, and wandered over there and bought the stamps. So, and he had the government come and check him out and all that. But he, twice now with the stamps, he's been the very first person in line at Graceland to get the stamp that had been canceled. So, and he's a great stamp collector. And Jack Soden and I and he were on the radio show that he did here a couple weeks ago talking about that as a major effort. So there's a lot of interesting folks here. George is on his way. He is going to be here shortly, and we'll begin that part of the organization. I do want to thank people in the Department of Communication for all the assistance they do in making this event available this year, and of course the Department of Theater and Dance, whose facilities you use, and Rick Mayfield, who's a person who does a lot with us as far as making all this happen, setting the stage and all that. Last night, we had at this very stage a tryout for a Broadway musical going on. It's a reading of the first time, the premiere, if you will, we'll call the Oliver Experiment. So he had to change from that to what you see here today in that short period of time, because that didn't get open until about 10 o'clock last night. So we really appreciate his efforts. And of course, WUMR, whose general manager is Malvin Massey, who was doing the show this morning when I was driving in, and he's been very crucial in having this get broadcast to the world. If you're a jazz fan and like jazz radio, by all means listen to FM 92 while you're in town, or go on your computer and streaming around the world. You people literally listening to that station around the world and calling in and people ask about donating for that, and we're happy to have that happen. And George, I know we appreciate that a lot, as well as Phil's family. So we'll have George here shortly and bring the people out. But I want to give you a little bit of a formal welcome, and it's always great to see so many folks here again, and some of you become old friends and keep in touch. And I'm always happy to communicate with you. You know, the name is Ranta, like Santa with an R, and the email is rranta, R-R-A-N-T-A. And I'm happy to answer your emails, be involved that way. It's at Memphis.edu, so it's pretty easy to remember all those kind of things. And or write or call, so we're very open to whatever you like. I'll be back in a few minutes and have George Klein along. See you later. Well, as they would say about Elvis, George Klein is in the building, so there are chairs up here for everybody. Some of these folks I had dinner with George Friday night. It was a great time in hearing them talking about their memories and the connections and just the amazing memory between Vice and State. So, we all sort of assembled around the way. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, man of the hour, George Klein.
Well, welcome to our 37th annual Elvis Memorial Service. When we started this, I made a vow that I would continue as long as I possibly could. So we're our 37th year. Before we start, we'd like to bring out a gentleman who's I've known for years now. He's a doctor. He's the chief of staff at the medical group here in Memphis. He has an Elvis room, if you believe, a real Elvis room. He's got pictures of me and Scotty and DJ and Jordan Ayers and Knox and Jerry Phillips and everybody in the Elvis room. And he's a big Elvis fan. I've been going to him for years, and he's a wonderful person. And sidebar story quickly. When people come into his medical group, his clinic there, and normally you come in and you sit down, you sit in a corner, and they call you, and they all, about 50% will say, well, I want to see the Elvis room. Yeah, I want to see the Elvis room because it's done very well, very tasteful. But to show you what kind of guy he is, he's known as the Elvis Doctor in Memphis, obviously. But I have a disc jockey partner named Jim Sykes who works with me on Sirius XM, so I radio every Friday. And Jim, about a year or two ago, a little over a year ago, we'd come in on Fridays, and while the music's playing, he's doing his left arm like this. I said, well, you got on Fridays in your arm or something? He said, man, I don't know. I said, well, you need to go see a doctor. He said, well, I don't have insurance or coverage, see a doctor. I said, well, I'll call Dr. Castelaw, and I guarantee you he will accept you as a charity cause. He said, oh, that'd be great. So he's going in for a physical checkup. And this is Jim. And while he was going through the checkup, they discovered that he was having a heart attack. And so Dr. Castelaw, who you're going to meet in a minute, he immediately told the staff member to call 911 and an ambulance there as quick as possible. And so Jim said, well, Doc, before you put me in that ambulance, can I go see the Elvis room? And eventually he saw the Elvis room. But part 3 of that story is a wonderful story. The guy said, this jockey, Jim Sykes, he said, Doc, I have no hospitalization, I have no insurance coverage. What are we going to do? Don't you worry about it, he said. I'll get you to the hospital. Got to the Baptist hospital, and Mark, on the way, called the hospital people and the authorities, and so I'm sending a guy down. He doesn't have hospitalization insurance, but please take care of him. The charity case rule. So he got there, and they took care of him under the charity just rule. And in the meantime, Dr. Castleoff called one of the Memphis, Tennessee's best heart specialists. And he said, I have a charity case going to Baptist right now, Jim Sykes. Doc, can you do me a big favor and possibly operate on him, no charge? And he said, yeah, I'll do it. You, Mark, I'll do it. So he did it. And later on, I asked Mark Castleoff, I said, Mark, Castleoff, how much did that heart operation cost? He said about $25,000, $30,000. And Castleoff had it comped. And then I said, well, how much did the hospital cost? He said about $200,000. And so Dr. Castleoff, out of the graciousness of his heart and his belief in his religion, he's a very wonderful person. He had it all covered by the hospital and the doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mark Castleoff.
George Klein's not just an Elvis fan, which he is, but he helped formulate the music that came out of Memphis in the 60s. And so, again, we asked the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to please let this man in. All right, before we start the service, this is a memorial service, we'd like to have a word of prayer. And before we pray, I do want to mention to you three people for you to remember your prayers. First is Ray Walker, the bass singer of the Jordanaires. His wife has recently had surgery, and we need to remember her. Dr. Nicopolis, who, as George was talking about, Elvis's doctor and good friend, is also in hospital, so we need to pray for him. And just recently, Miss Marion Kopp was supposed to be here today, and she's very ill. So we need to remember those three people as we pray. Now let's go to the Lord in prayer. Lord, we ask your blessings on the celebration service for Elvis Presley and the people involved who make this wonderful event happen. We also ask for safekeeping of the fans here that have traveled from all over the world. We thank you for giving us Elvis Presley, who entertained and impacted the world with his music and his life. We now invite you, Lord, to be our honored guest as we celebrate the life of the man who wanted the world to know how great thou art. Amen.
So if you're ever in Memphis and you need your doctor, Dr. Mark Castleoff is the guy you should call. What a wonderful, religious, good-hearted type guy. Ladies and gentlemen, he was a precious gift from God. We cherished and loved dearly. He had a God-given talent that he shared with the world. Without a doubt, he became the most widely acclaimed, capturing the hearts of young and old alike. He was admired not only by as an entertainer, but as a great humanitarian. He was for legend generosity, he had tremendous generosity, and his kind feelings for his fellow man. He revolutionized the field of music and received its highest awards. He became a living legend in his own time, earning the respect and love of millions. God saw that he needed some rest. He called him home to be with him. We miss you, son and daddy. I thank God that he gave us you as our son, Vernon Elvis Presley. That's on the tombstone, in case you haven't seen it out there first time. And we're going to say also, ladies and gentlemen, a little notation that I saw or read or whatever. To live in the hearts we leave behind is not to die. And Elvis Presley will never die. He will always be there for us. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start with Will Barlow and Daniel. Will is a guy that will always just explain who you are and how you got connected to Elvis.
How many of y'all, this is your first time here? Very good. Well, hope you enjoyed your time here in Memphis. Hope you enjoyed this conversations here. Now, I met Elvis back in 1957, Rainbow Skating Rink. I worked at the rink, and Elvis rented the rink. First night I met him, I got the nickname Barlow. He gave me his phone number and address and told me I could come up to Grayson anytime I wanted. So the first time I went up to Grayson, I went to the gate. Guard was talking to a couple of girls, and I told him, I said, hey, someone told me I could come up there anytime I wanted. Guard looked at me and said, no, it don't work like that. If you got to call up the house, they'll call down and tell me whether you can come up or not. So at that time, right across the street, back at that time, it was a 2-lane road. It was in the county. I walked across the street and called up the house. Somebody answered the phone. I said, you know, Elvis told me I could come up anytime I wanted. I told him who I was, where I needed that. He said, hold on a minute. He comes back a minute later. He said, Elvis said you can come on up. So as I'm walking across the street, I hear the phone ring at the guard shack. Time I get over there, the guard comes out and says, Barlow. I said, that's me. He said, you can go up. He opened the gate, and I walked up to the house, and I knocked on the front door, and nobody opened the door. I walked in, and I said, I'm Barlow. He's all, Elvis is waiting for you in the food room. He turned around and started walking away. I said, whoa, come back here. He said, I ain't never been here before. We're in the food room. He said, you go to that wall, you turn and go down the steps. When you get to the bottom of the steps, you turn right, and that's the food room. Okay. I remember going to the wall and going halfway down the steps. Next morning when I got up, my mother asked me how I liked it. I told her, I have no idea. I don't remember nothing. I stayed there all night and didn't remember nothing. So I went back up the next night. Same thing, called up there, and they called and said, okay, so I go up, get down the bottom. This time I make it to the bottom of the food room. I walk in, and Elvis says, well, how'd you like it last night? Hell, I don't know, I don't remember nothing. He said, well, I said, no, I don't remember a thing from the time I started out in the tips and I got up this morning. He laughed, he said, that's the funniest thing I ever heard in my life. But that night I remembered everything, and the next morning I could tell my mother everything that went on that night. You got to remember, there wasn't no drugs, there wasn't no drinking, other than Pepsi. And so, you know, we had a good clean time. We used to have Roman candle fights. Elvis would buy boxes and boxes of Roman candles we have outside. We get out there 4 or 5 on each side and we shoot Roman candles at each other. Oh, that was fun till you swallowed one. And I did. I heard, whoa, stop. Everybody stop. I went out to my car, I raced automobile, and got my radio headphones put on, and a clover shield on. Went back, found the head top and all that thing. A few minutes later, I said, whoa, stop. So come here, Barlow. So let me see the helmet. He had on his yacht cap. I pulled off the helmet, he put the yacht cap on my head. He said, I'm prettier than you are. I didn't argue with that. But I hope everybody enjoys their time here in Memphis. I hope to see everybody back again next year. Thank y'all.
When we first started the memorial service at the University of Memphis, I got in touch with two guys. You met one earlier, Dean Ranta. Dean, did you want to say anything, or are you okay?
I've done that already.
You've done it already. The grace of God and Dean Ranta, he provided this venue for us at no charge, air conditioned, very nice, and he's done a marvelous job of helping us with Elvis Fans. I've been broadcasting on the college station, aren't we, Dean Ranta?
Yes.
WUMR.
FM 92, 91.7.
91, this is broadcasting going all over the South. I guess you can probably pick it up on the internet somehow. But we always appreciate that in case you ever can't come next year, you can listen on WUMR. Also, ladies and gentlemen, when I first came out here, he worked with Dr. Baki. He's a professor for many years at the University of Memphis. He retired and he sort of made a semi-comeback. He's still with us. And a wonderful guy, and he was very much into Elvis history. And he knows a whole lot about the history of Elvis. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Baki.
It's nice to be semi-retired. How many of you are semi-retired? It's good to be back here every year. We remember when this event started. And I've always properly given George Klein credit for beginning what is now Elvis Week. I think George deserves a big hand. But the truth is, the credit to George should not be for starting Elvis Week as much as it has been for the service that he has given these past 37, 38 years in keeping the tradition alive. So let's and we can say the same thing about Dean Richard Ranta. He's been here every year since the beginning. But George, the real credit for Elvis Week, I'm looking at it. You people were here before Elvis Week. You were the people that were here that made people in Memphis say, hey, we've got to do something because all these people are coming to our community. And you helped awaken the city of Memphis and West Tennessee to the great significance of Elvis Presley and all of Memphis music. So on behalf of everyone in the city of Memphis, I would like to thank you for what you've done for helping make Memphis a great tourist center for music, and especially the music of Elvis Presley and blues. And now I'm going to tell you one story about Elvis that I just learned last night. Last night, my wife and I went out to dinner with a couple that we've known since 1978. We went to dinner, we came back in our home, we visited for a couple of hours, and when we were about to leave, I mentioned that I was coming down here today. And Nancy O'Neill, one of our visitors, says, or her husband actually, Ronnie, said Nancy should tell you her story about Elvis. Well, I said, let's hear it. I'd be glad to hear it. In 1956, she was a senior at Central High School in Memphis.
A little more.
And she was a member of a sorority, and they were getting together a sorority party, and they wanted an entertainer. We're talking about the spring of 1956.
Too low for John. So.
And who would be a good person to come as the entertainer for our sorority party? And she said, well, how about Elvis Presley? And to Elvis Presley, he had become an international star by that point. And she said, well, let's go to his house and ask him.
We're getting a little feedback.
And she and her girlfriend, sorority sister, went to Elvis's home on Autumn Drive. Elvis was not there. His mother was. And Gladys Presley said to Nancy and her friend, she said, well, Elvis can't be here because he's out in Hollywood. I think they're making a movie called Love Me Tender. And Mrs. Presley said, come in and visit. And for the to sing at your party. And I believe she would, and I know Elvis would have done that, because that tells us a lot about the kind of person he was, to do a favor like that for someone he didn't know from Memphis, when his popularity had reached worldwide proportions. So let's think a moment about Gladys Presley, Elvis, and their good hearts. Thank you very much.
Dr. John Bakke. Dr. Bakke's retired, but he's still involved. That's great. Yeah, I don't know, how many people have you had a chance to read my book yet? Okay. Very good, thank you so much. I appreciate that. The book has done very well for me. It's sold 80,000 so far, and it's number one in Germany. As Elvis was in the Army in Germany, went top 5 in England and top 20 in America. It's done very well for me. I'm very proud of the book. I think I tell this story in the book. It's one of the cutest stories I got. I got a million stories, but Elvis had a lot of pet peeves. He hated the name Elvis the Elvis. He really hated it with a passion. Elvis didn't allow fish and beer in Graceland until the very end. And the reason on fish was he didn't like the smell of it when they were cooking it. And on beer, I said, Elvis, why don't you want beer in Graceland? Because some of the guys have a beer once in a while. He said, because when I was about 14 years old, I lived in a rough area in North Memphis, not too far from the high school. And these guys on the weekend, they get a 6-pack and they sit on the curb, they drink little beer cans and throw them all on the curb. He said, I just didn't like the connotation of it. I said, okay, Elvis, I understand. And then he hated it if you called him by his last name. And that came from the Army days, Presley. But if he called you by your last name, you're in trouble. And so Elvis had just given me a 1968 yellow Cadillac convertible for Christmas. I only had it about 3 weeks, and I was driving out to Graceland to see Elvis and all the guys who used to hang out there while he was in town. And I was going what we call the back way at that time. It was before they made Memphis International Airport. I'm driving down this, not a country road, but a semi-country road, and I see a black panel truck parked on the side of the road. And this guy, got the hood raised, and he's looking at it and looking at it. I felt sorry for him, but I had to get on to Graceland. So I looked in my rearview mirror, and the guy waved at me. Well, I thought he recognized me. And I said, well, I'll wave back at him and kept on going. So when I got to Graceland, I said, where's Elvis? They said, he's out in the black panel truck. And I said, oh, no. And I said, they said, what do you mean? I said, well, I saw it broke down. I had no idea it was Elvis. I just kept on going. They said, boy, are you in for it when you're there? And I don't think too many of the guys in Elvis's group, maybe Joe Esposito had the key to Graceland's front door. Elvis and I think Joe had the front door key. Other guys came in the back door off the kitchen. So we're all sitting in the den off the kitchen. We never called it the jungle room. It's always the den off the kitchen. The media laid that name on it. So the front door opens, and I hear Elvis in a loud voice say, where is Klein? And I tried to hide, and I couldn't hide. And he jumped on me. He wasn't hitting me hard. He was play hitting me. You son of a gun. So I gave you that car, man, and you broke about me, and you tell I was broken down, and you waved at me and just kept on going. I said, Elvis, I had no idea it was you, man. He said, yeah, that was me. So I said, well, how'd you get home? And he said, I stopped a guy, some guys riding down the street, and I started hitchhiking, and they backed up, and I gave him $100 to bring me out to Graceland. But there's a lot of wonderful more stories in that book. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a young man that joined Elvis late on. His daddy was Dr. George McAuliffe, and a quick thing about Dr. Nick. And I'm going to say this, and I've said it from my heart many times. Dr. George McAuliffe was the good doctor. The bad doctor was Dr. Elias Ganem in Las Vegas. He was called the doctor to the stars. He'd give those stars anything they wanted. And of course, we tried to intercept them, and to no avail. We he would ship them in, and then, of course, he tried some crazy routines on Elvis. One time, he said, Elvis, if you want to lose weight, I want you to come to my house, and I got a new method. I'm going to put you in my house, and you're going to stay there for 2 weeks, and you'll eat very little, and I'll come and talk to you and console you, etc. After about 3 days, Elvis said, get me out of this damn house. I've already gained 10 pounds. But God was and I don't mind saying it, he was not a good guy. And he had a lot to do with Elvis's health going bad. Dr. Elias got him. And poor Dr. Nick, who was my doctor, I was the one that got Elvis to use Dr. Nick. And everybody started using him. Charlie started using him. Joe started using him. Because he was a good doctor. And he was riding horses, as I recall, down in his little ranch in South Haven or Horn Lake, but it was about 20 miles south of Graceland. And he came up with some saddle sores, and he came in, and he needed a doctor. He said, where's that doctor you talking about, GK? I said, it's medical group. He said, call him, get him out here. So I got Charlie to call, because I was leaving. I said, Charlie, just call Barbara over to the medical group and see if they can come by. And Nick came by, he took care of Elvis. That was the beginning of a good relationship and a wonderful friendship. And I'll never forget, there was a discussion once in the house, Graceland. Elvis had, for some reason, wasn't using Dr. Nick on the next tour, and he's going to use it on Lion's Cannon. And Jerry Schilling, who was one of the original Memphis Mafia guys, and Jerry had a way of saying from the heart, constructive criticism to Elvis. Elvis didn't like constructive criticism, but he would take it. Jerry was a very intelligent guy. And he said, Elvis, he said, can I say something? And Elvis said, yeah, what do you want to say, Jerry? He said, when that guy, Dr. Elias Cannon, is here in Vegas, your health goes south. When Dr. Nick is here, you're in good health. So Elvis slammed the door and walked out. The next day, Dr. Nick was back in. And he didn't use condom on any more tours that I know of. Ladies and gentlemen, his father is Dr. George Nicopoulos. He's living in an assisted living home. Don't make you sad. He's flat broke. He took the worst fall of anybody else in his group. Lost both of his practice license. And he's just a great guy. And I call him at least once a week and talk to him. He's had a lot of problems in his life, almost lost his house that Elvis gave him, etc., etc. But ladies and gentlemen, here's his son, Dino Nicopoulos.
We wouldn't be here if it weren't for Elvis, right? None of us would be here. He put us all here. We all met. When I met Elvis, and I taught him how to play racquetball when I was 15 years old. And we would kid around, he would kid around with me. And then when I hit 18 years old, he asked if I wanted to work for him. Well, my dad said it was okay, but my mom was sort of, nah, I don't think so. Anyway, so I told my mom, I said, I'm going to go to college my first year. And I played a sport called racquetball. So anyway, I had a chance to go to Memphis State. So I went to Memphis State right here. And I told Elvis, if I won the national championship the first year, I'd quit college and go to work for him. So the very first year, I got lucky and won the national championship here. And it was the first time we won it in racquetball here in 74, 75. So we won the national championship. And then in April, Elvis was at asking me, he said, well, you ready to work for me? And I'm going like, yeah, and I was so scared to death. But anyway, so we were playing at a place called the Tanner Building. And he came up to me with Jerry and I think it was Joe. We were sitting up there and Elvis came and he said, well, I want you to work for me and I'll start paying you a certain amount of money. So he offers this amount of money to me. And the two guys, Jerry and me, were like, no, we're not paying that much yet. And I'm like, I can care less what he gave me, it's just going to be fun. So anyway, the only thing he told me that sticks with me, that should stick with you guys, he said, if you're honest and dependable, you can make it in this world. And that was the two words he said to me that night that's always stuck in my head. If you're honest and dependable. So when I toured with him, my whole thing was to be honest, do everything I'm supposed to do, be dependable, I wouldn't have any problems. And that's why we hit it off so good. There were a lot of guys that worked for us at the time. And a couple times I remember touring with Elvis, and he offered me a watch. And he just given me a watch that said Elvis Presley on it, at the time. And he's offering, and that watch he gave me, who knows what it was worth. I was a kid, I could care less. But then he offers me this big old diamond watch, big old watch. And I looked at him and I said, I don't need that watch, I got a watch. And about that time, one of the guys that worked for us came around and he said, well, I'll take that watch. So he took that watch. And the funny thing about it was Elvis turned around at me and just winked at me. So I mean, Elvis was very knowledgeable what was going on around. People don't realize that, but he was very knowledgeable about that. But I got a couple of stories I'm going to tell you guys, and a couple of them are pretty funny, and a couple of them, just going to have to see what happens here. But the first one was, the very first night I was at Elvis's house, I would stay downstairs, and I probably slept at Lisa's room more than Lisa did, okay? This is to be honest, because I was always on call 24 hours, and there was 4 guys that we all worked together and we were always on call. But anyway, the very first night, I looked at him and I said, Elvis, I think I'm going to go get something to eat. And he looked at me and he said, well, you don't have to do that. And I said, well, yeah, I'm hungry. I'm going to go get you something to eat. I don't know if you cook for me. And he said, well, I'm going to go good for you anyway. I said, okay. Anyway, so he said, go downstairs and have Aunt Delta get one of the ladies down there to cook your meal. And I said, okay. So I went downstairs. First time I've ever done this, I'm a little nervous. So I said, Aunt Delta, Elvis told me to tell you to cook me a steak, baked potato, and a salad. And Aunt Delta looks at me. About 3 seconds later, she turns around. She says, absolutely not. She said, what do you think this is? The Holiday Inn? And I'm like, oh, yeah. But I thought that Elvis just set me up. So I called him back upstairs, and I said, Elvis, I'm going to get a barbecue. Do you want a barbecue? He said, what did I tell you to do? I said, you told me to do something, but she told me this ain't no Holiday Inn. This is true as it is. He looks at me and he says, hold on. And I saw that phone. When you see that little phone ring, you see the buzz, you go downstairs, she picks it up. Next thing I know, he said, go downstairs and tell her what she wants to eat. I'm going like, this is going to be great, man. Think about it. So I walked downstairs, and she said, well, what do you want to eat? How do you want your steak cooked? I said, I like it medium rare. Then she says, do you want a salad? I said, yeah, I'll take salad. What about baked potatoes? She goes, do you want dessert? And I'm like, oh my God. I think I'm going to get poisoned there, so this is really going to be cool. But anyway, so we had our little concert meeting in Delta, and that we never had a problem because Elvis took care of that. That was one of the stories. But that was the very first night I was there. And then when we were on tour one time, we really weren't on tour. We had just gone to Las Vegas. It was just him and I, Dick Grove, Sam, I think Alstrada. That's all it was. We were all together. And we were staying at the Hilton. So we were going down the Hilton elevator, and before that, Elvis says, I want some Italian food tonight. And I'm going like, well, I thought he just wanted me to go pick up some food at the hotel and where we're staying. Wrong. So anyway, he's got his sweatsuit on, he's got his collar up, he's got his glasses on. Just picture how he would do. He's walking down there like that. Next thing I know, we're walking down the hill, right in the middle of everything. He says, you think anybody's going to recognize him? He's home. So we walked straight down there. About that time, I was with, not so big, I said, I'm going to run to go get the car. So I ran to get the car so we could have a vehicle, a Hilton vehicle. So I get down there, I'm looking. I went to the valet. Well, guess what? Somebody's got the car. We don't have a car. He's about 20, where that exit sign is, and that's it. Okay, coming towards me. We got to go over there to that exit sign. So I looked at that valet and I said, what can you do? About that time, I can remember this like it was yesterday. That's what's so fun about it. This cowboy with had his hat on, and he's getting out of a Lincoln Continental. So he gets out of this Lincoln. This guy looks at me and he said, I'll tell you what, he's going to the show. So what I want you to do is take his car, but have it back in an hour and a half. Okay? So anyway, this is true now. So I watch him park the car, the man comes out, he walks, goes that way, next thing I know, the valet gives me the keys. Okay, Elvis finally gets here, I don't tell nobody no. I'm not going to say no. I'm sort of, it's one of those things you're sort of, damn if you do, damn if you don't. You know what I'm saying? So, to make a long story short, we get in the car, we take off to this little hole-in-the-wall Italian restaurant. And, thank God Dick was driving, Elvis was driving, we'd be in trouble. Okay, he drove. I'll tell you that. But I told I told Dick when we got to the restaurant, this is not our car. This is not the Elvis car. This is an individual's car. We got to sort of speed Elvis up. And you don't want to let him know you want him to rush, because if you try to speed Elvis up, he's going to slow down. So, I mean, that was just it. So what happened was, we get back, we make it back in time, we go upstairs. So when we're sitting upstairs, I figured I'm going to tell Elvis why we're really here. So I looked at Elvis and said, this is what happened. I said, that was, the valet let us borrow that guy's car. He was a stolen car. And I said, well, I guess. But I don't know who they're going to come get, him or us, because he gave us the keys. Anyway, so as Elvis was sitting up there, you remember, Elvis is the most giving person in the world. I mean, if he gave you something, he gave me 2 cars, okay? And he liked them better than I did, okay? Just figure that out. That's how much. He never threw it up in my face one time. I mean, never ever, well, I gave you this car, something. That's not Elvis. So anyway, I'm sitting up there with him, and he says, well, you need to get that guy a Trans Am. I'm going like, okay, it's 2:30, it's getting late, about 2 o'clock in the morning. He goes, that guy needs to have a car before he gets off. So I got on the phone that night. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning. We finally got the guy a car, sent the car. So the valet got a brand new Trans Am there at the time. So he gets a Trans Am, and Elvis, and he didn't meet Elvis, but he just got the Trans Am. So ever since then, I'm sitting there going like, oh my God, I didn't even imagine. And that's just the way Elvis was, spur of the moment. He's going to do something spur of the moment. And then I'm going to tell you one more story, and I'll leave that one on the body, guys. This one's pretty funny because it happened so quick and I didn't know what to do. A lot of times I sort of know how to handle him. On stage, he was fun on stage. You knew what he was going to do. But when you're doing things with him, prankster, he's a prankster. We all were pranksters back in the day. But funny thing about it was, we were in riding a motorcycle. He asked everybody if they wanted a motorcycle. I said, absolutely not. I don't ride motorcycles. I said, I'll drive in the Ferrari and follow you guys, but I do not want a motorcycle. I just didn't like it. When I get the motorcycle, he said, well, don't worry about it. He said, you can ride with me. And I'm going, yeah, okay. I'm a kid. And when I was young, I was young and dumb. So I said, okay. So I got in the back of the cycle with him. Now, back in the day, I don't know if you guys remember, we used to have these Tropicana bottles of orange juice. Anyway, so we put water in that night. And so he told me to hold on to this Tropicana thing of water. And he said, the other hand, just hold on to the cycle on the left. He said, I don't feel very secure doing that, because if he jumps up, I can see me falling off. Anyway, so I get on the back of the cycle with him. He's all decked out. And you gotta remember, he's all decked out. He's got his helmet on, he's got the thing down, he's got the cigar in his mouth. He's ready to ride. Me, I just got a pair of shorts on, a t-shirt, I'm going, okay, I'm going. So anyway, we get on the cycle. And we start going down Winchester, and we cut across. We're probably going 70 miles an hour. Okay. And I don't, I've never been on a cycle. Never. Anyway, so I'm sort of getting a little nervous here, but I'm trying to act cool. And he starts turning back at me like that. And I'm going like, every time he turns back, he'd go faster. I get going, yeah, go ahead. And I don't really say that. No idea what he's saying. I just didn't want him to stop the cycle. I want to get this ride over with. You know what I'm saying? Just get the ride over with. That's what I did. So anyway, after the third time, I'm going, how fast are we really going here? What is he doing? So anyway, so we go through the gates, come up to the front of the house. He gets out, I get off, and he looks at me and he says, man, you are brave. I said, what are you talking about? He's asked you 3 times if you want to go faster, and you tell him yeah. And so I actually told him, I said, that's not true. I didn't know what you were saying. I just didn't want you to stop. I was afraid if we got in a wreck, I can see me getting thrown up in a tree, a peon me up here, and Elvis Presley over here. They'll never find me if they find you. So that's just a little story. The good thing about it is we're here from him, and you will never ever meet a better person than Elvis Presley. And I say that because I was lucky enough to experience that. And the fun thing about experiencing something like that, you got to be with him eating breakfast. You got to be with him eating dinner. You got to see him. And about the only other thing he ever did this is pretty funny, but to you guys it might not be. I was sitting at Graceland, and he was And I was in Lisa's room. I mean, I was sound asleep. And I get this nudge, scoot over, I'm going over. And it's him. So what I did was, I sort of turned him around, and I walked him back to the bed, his bedroom, and said, hey, here's your bed. And then I walked back out. I could imagine waking up the next morning, waking up sleeping with him, everybody looking at what are you doing? That's true story. So anyway, that's all I got to say today. I'm glad you guys made it happen.
Dino the couple. One of these days to live here. But you know, Elvis was a respectable guy, and I'll never forget, I asked Elvis about it once, and he said, GK, he said, when I was about 12 or 13 years old, I lived in downtown Memphis. I lived near the Elvis Auditorium, and sidebar story, I remember I was walking down the street once, and the guy said, hey man, I said, he said, where's the Elvis Auditorium? I think it's not Elvis, it's Elvis, E-L-I-S. He's going to see the show that Elvis was doing. So anyway, Elvis is in Vegas, and he couldn't, when he ended the show, he couldn't go through the casino because people would mob him for autographs and pictures, etc. So he went through the help's quarters, the cook's quarters, where they put food up to your room and all that, at a what called door where he could get in that out of his dressing room. So we were in there, and we were going up to Elvis's dressing room, and we almost arrived there, and a guy jumped out of the stairwell with a camera and said, Mr. Presley, can I please take your picture? Well, it was kind of a shock because we were pretty the bodyguards and the security were grabbing him. And they did grab him, they threw him up against the wall, and they started opening up his camera, and they were going to take out the film. And Elvis said, wait a minute. They said, Elvis, but we don't know who this guy is, you know, a lot of crazy things are happening on the West Coast. He said, yeah, but he said, you know, fellas, I want to tell you something. He's talking to the security and Memphis Mafia guys. He said, these are my fans. Please don't hurt my fans. Without my fans, I'd be nothing. And he said, I remember back in the day when I was a teenager, and I used to go to Elvis Auditorium, and the stars would come out and try to get an autograph or shake their hands, and they just wouldn't look at it and keep on going. He said, if I made it, I'm going to try to be nice to everybody. And he said, sir, how many pictures do you have in that camera? He said, 32. He said, okay, give him his camera back. And he said, we stood there, and he said, you want an action shot? You want a karate shot? You want a shot like I'm saying? And this guy shot 32 pictures. And then he turned to his guys, he said, see what I mean? He had no harm, and we don't want to hurt the wrong people. But that's the type of guy he was. And I remember we did a documentary once called Elvis Memories years ago. And I had Bester, Elvis was on the show. And I said, Bester, what would Elvis tell you about the fans at the gate? And he would say, GK, he said, Elvis would tell you, now, Uncle Bester, those are the people who put me on this top of this hill. Whatever you do, please be nice to all of them. And he was, and that's where he was. A lot of times, it'd be 10, 11 o'clock at night. He'd say, GK, call down to the gate, see if there's anybody at the gate. I'd call down Bester to work the night shift. And I said, Uncle Bester, is anybody down there? He said, yes, there's about 25 people here. And I said, okay. I said, well, Elvis may come down. So I told Elvis, he said, okay, guys, let's go. And we went down to the gates of Graceland, and he stood there for about an hour signing autographs. And he just said, you know, I wanted an autograph once, and the guy stood there and he said, if I ever made it, I want to give everybody an autograph if I possibly can. That's why you see a lot of Elvis autographs out there somewhere. And also you see a lot of pictures with Elvis, the people, because he never ever refused. He was really, in addition to being the king of rock and roll and the #1 entertainer in the world, he was a super, super nice guy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Our next guest is a young lady I've known for a long time, and I want to preface this by saying Mrs. Cox, who's always with us. She got sick after her banquet the other night, and she's not able to be here today. And I came down some kind of jazz, and so I wasn't able to be there the other night. But be that as it may, this young lady worked with Dr. Dick for many years, and she was Dr. Dick's right and left-hand man, if you will, and did a lot of personal things for Dr. Dick as far as prescriptions and setting up rooms for people, etc., etc. Ladies and gentlemen, she's written a book. Her name is Tish. I know Kirk. Is that right, Tish? Did I get it right, Tish? Miss Tish Kirk.
Well, good afternoon. I'll introduce myself. I'm Atlanta's Letitia. I've been called a lot of things. I was Tish. They always call me Tishina. He had a little pet name for everyone, but I was very blessed. I worked with the medical group with Dr. George McCompos. Elvis received some of the best possible care from Dr. McCompos and all the referring physicians he referred him to. And I'll kind of pick up on a little story that George was talking about Dr. John, because I did travel with Elvis some. When Dr. Mayfield go on tour, I was on tour. And it was a tough job. I've been very, very blessed. It's been such a special part of his life. And as I say, I've just now come out of the Elvis closet because after Elvis first died, the news media, the reporters, they were around. I could come sit in the office. You know, I called and I said, hey, Tish. They'd block my car in. They'd block me at the front gate. But my story was, Elvis was my patient. He was my friend. And had I preceded him, he would have not written anything about me. So that's what I've done for 38 years. A friend of mine from the UK kept on and said, Tish, please just go to an event with me. So in 12, I went to an event with him over on at the Dog House. I said, okay, but I'm going to be the church mouse. At that time, my eyes were open to the love, the loyalty, the devotion of you guys. So I sat there and I would listen to these people and talk to them just a little bit, and I thought, you know, I've really been selfish. So I go home, I put on my thinking cap, and I start taking notes. I thought, okay, I'm going to let these people that have been so loyal, and so loving, and so dedicated, and many of you never were even born when Elvis was around. I mean, can you imagine having a person that has been so magnitude to us that people that never were born know probably as much about it as George and I do. So I thought, okay, this is what I need to do. So my book is just a little short story about memories, nothing about the drugs, sex, rock and roll, and women, but enough said about that. Elvis was the most kind, caring, gentle, human, and, not to say the least, the most intelligent man I have ever spoken with in my life. I've been a nurse for 40-something years. I've had presidents, I've had governors, I've had mayors, I've had other physicians, musicians. He was very well read. Two things about Elvis that was the very top is number one, his intelligence, and number two, his love for his fans. But anyway, to get back to the medical side, Dr. McCompos and George told part of the story. Elvis was not a patient. Elvis was, we loved Elvis Presley. I loved him since I was a kid. So George had someone make a call that Elvis had saddle sores on his butt. So anyway, Dr. Nick said, me, you look at me. So anyway, he looked at me and we talked, and I get out of the room, and so they paged me. Letitia Henley, Dr. Copp's office, and I thought, oh, holy crap. So I go on, and I finish my duties, and I go to Dr. Nick's office, and I knocked on the door, my knees were shaking. Open the door, he was just sitting there slow, and I thought, Jesus Christ, I got $2 to take care of my husband, I'm going to be fired, I'm just going to go to Presley. He says, country, what did you say to Elvis? So I told him what I said, and he said, he likes you. Wow. I thought I chose because I thought, I still have a job. So that was the very beginning of the most wonderful relationship of my life. So, you know, Elvis, he, as I said, was very intelligent, so he found out I had two young daughters. Of course, Lisa would come here several times a year and visit. She was a little tot. So Elvis would say, well, you know, Tishina, why don't you bring the girls down? Now, here's the medical group. I live way out here, and here's Graceland. So I get off from work, I drive from work, I drive home, I pick up the girls, and I drive to Graceland, let them play till about 9 o'clock at night. Then I have to journey back home and then do my wife and mother duties. So he came up with this idea. He said, you know, Dad's health's not real good. Aunt Della's here, Dodger, who was grandmother. And he said, I need you to live out at Graceland. Well, we had just built a new home, our very first home. We had really built since we were married. I'll put you a trailer in the back. Well, you know, I just need you down here, and the girls can live here all kinds of places. So we kind of went around and around about that, because I didn't want to live out of my home. I loved him dearly. He was a patient. That would be awesome. But, you know, that was a piece of investment. He kept on, I kept telling him, so, Elvis being Elvis, you have to use all most of the time. He was talking about me. He said, I can't get her to move down here, Dr. Nick. He said, what am I going to do? And so Dr. Nick opened his little mouth, and he said, well, her husband
Thank you, Tish. It's the first time Tish has been with us. And you have a new book out what's it called? TEC, taking care of DCA. Taking care of TCE? DC, taking care of Elvis. And as I said, she was Dr. Nick's right hand at the medical group, and they were working together. I'm not sure where if Dr. Mack is still here, but ladies and gentlemen, just talking to Bev, who's been with me all these years, and it's like you've set some sort of record. This is one of the biggest crowds we've ever had. Give yourself a round of applause. He watches the park. He said it's probably one of the biggest crowds we've ever had. We certainly appreciate you coming out today. You know, Elvis was a fun guy to be with, and I mean, Audubon Drive. How many of you been to the Audubon Drive house? Okay, you've seen that little house with the musical notes on the fence and all that jazz. And so one night I'm out there, and I had just gotten fired from a radio station. They called me in and they said, "George, bad news." I said, "What's that?" They said, "We think this rock and roll is a fad. It's not going to last. It's like a calypso and a mambo and a tango. We're going to have to let you go." I said, "Man, are you crazy? Is this happening?" So anyway, they let me go. That very night I saw Elvis. He took me out. "Well, why aren't you on the radio, GK?" And I said, "Elvis," I told him the story. He said, "Fad? Fad? We'll show him what kind of fad it is." Boy, did he ever show him. So that night, there was not much happening at the Audubon Drive house. I said, "Come on, GK, let's go downtown and drag Maine." Now, can you imagine, in the South, that means looking for girls, you know, driving up and down Main Street. Now, can you imagine dragging Maine with Elvis Presley and a white Mark II Lincoln, you know, his parts on his split bracelet. So we go down Main Street, and before you know it, there must be 5 or 6 carloads of girls that spotted him, and they were following us. So Elvis turned around and he went down 2nd Street, which is the other way, and there was a traffic signal, and he said, "GK," he said, "go back and tell those 5 carloads of girls to follow us out to the Audubon Drive house." And he said, "We'll have a little party, but tell them don't bring any guys with them." And I said, "Okay." So I jumped out of the car and I went back and I told the girls, "Hey, Elvis has invited you to a private party at his house. Just follow us and we'll show you how to get there." And they said, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure." So I go back to the car, and Elvis is back up against the car, and there's about 8 or 9 Marines in their uniform, and they got Elvis backed up, and I wheezed in the grill. "What's going on here, man?" It's where your buddy Presley, the movie star, you know that's the guy taking shots. The movie star, the big singer, he's been hitting on my wife, man, while I've been out of town. I said, "You crazy?" I said, "Elvis just got back from Hollywood yesterday for making the movie Loving You. He's been out hitting on your girlfriend." "Oh, yeah, he has." And just me and Elvis now, about 8 Marines. And they kept moving toward us. And they said, "We're going to see how tough this movie star is." And about that time, Elvis reached in his pocket and he pulled out a gun. And he put the gun right there and he said, "Okay, now, I want to see how brave you guys are. The first guy that moves, I'm going to shoot you." And Elvis whispered to me, he said, "GK, get in the car, get in the car." So I went around, got in the car, it was like a movie. And Elvis was backing up with a gun, and those Marines had their hands up, and it was, you know, kind of crazy. And so I get in the car, and boom, we leave. And I said, "Elvis, where'd you get that gun?" He said, "Well, when I left Hollywood, it's not a real gun. It's what they call a prop gun used in movies." I said, "Man, thank goodness you got it." Well, the story goes on. It's better. We go out to Audubon Drive, we're partying with all these girls, just me and Elvis, and that was heaven, you know. So about 4 o'clock in the morning, Elvis's mom and dad were already asleep. That little house we had 3 bedrooms. His mom and dad stayed in one, his grandmother had an inmate, stayed in that one, and then Elvis stayed in the other room, and I stayed with Elvis in that room. So there's somebody knocked at the door, and Elvis said, "GK, go see who that is at 4 o'clock in the morning." So I went to the door, and it was a reporter from a local newspaper, the Commercial Appeal. And he said, he knew me. He said, "GK, where's Elvis?" I said, "Well, he's back in the den, having a little party." He said, you guys know that this Marine has filed a thing with the police department saying that Elvis Presley tried to shoot him tonight. I said, what? Are you serious? He said, yeah, the guy, you guys like to have to go to court. So I went back and I told Elvis, and Elvis said the same thing. What's he talking about? So Elvis goes out, and the reporter is pretty nice. He said, Elvis, I'm just here doing a story. That this Marine, he's filed with the police department that you tried to shoot him and kill him tonight. And Elvis said, what? And I said, what? He said, well, Elvis, we just want to know, can we get a picture of you holding up that gun? So we went out to the car. You may have seen the picture. I'm cut out in some pictures, and some pictures I'm in there. But it's Elvis holding up the gun, and the photographer takes a shot at him, and I'm sitting over here. And some periodicals it's cut out, but a lot of them in there. So we go home, and we go back to Autumn Drive, and we told the girls, hey, we're going to call it early night. We got to think about the problem here. So early that morning, Colonel Parker, Elvis' manager, called. And he said, Elvis, what the hell happened? And he told him, he said, well, Elvis, you know, this guy has filed a thing against you with the Memphis police, and you're going to have to go to court. He said, do you want me to send in some high-powered lawyers from Hollywood? You want me to hire a high-powered lawyer in Memphis? He said, well, how do you want to handle this, Elvis? And Elvis said, no, GK and I, we'll just go ourselves. And we'll cover ourselves. And I said to myself, well, I minored in law in college, and I said, I don't know if this is any good, Elvis. He said, we didn't do anything wrong. So we go down the next morning at 9 o'clock to the judge's quarters downtown to the courthouse. And this Marine walks in, and he's got a civilian lawyer, he's got a Navy lawyer, he's got a Marine lawyer. Well, he got 3 lawyers. And it's just me and Elvis. So we go in, and finally, we're in the judge's quarters. It's a private hearing, so to speak. And the judge turns to the Marine, and he said, let me hear your side of the story. And he told me, he said, Elvis, let me hear your side of the story. And then the judge turned to the Marine, and he said, son, how long have you been in the Marines? He said, about 3 years, sir. He said, don't they teach you what a real gun looks like in the Marines? So we knew we were home free. He said, case dismissed. So it goes on, it gets worse. So we go outside, get ready to get Elvis's car. Here comes the Marine. And he wants to apologize to Elvis. I'm sorry, Mr. Presley, I shouldn't have done that, this and that. And he said, but Mr. Presley, he said, I know you're going on tour. And he said, yeah, GK is going with me. We're going on tour tomorrow. We're going to hit 10 big cities in America. Over in Chicago, and Philadelphia, down to St. Louis. And he said, Mr. Presley, I'm from St. Louis. He said, when you get to St. Louis, do you think it would be possible that I could introduce my wife to you? And I looked at Elvis, and Elvis looked at me, and Elvis, being Mr. Nice Guy, he said, oh, yeah, sure, I'll tell you what, sir, soldier, GK will be with me. When you get to St. Louis, come backstage and ask me to fly, and we'll work this out. So we forgot about it, man. We hit the road, Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit, all the big cities. People were going crazy over Elvis. So we finally get to to St. Louis, and we're backstage, and Elvis is getting ready to go on. And one of those security guards comes back, and he says, is there a George Klein here? And I said, yeah, I'm George Klein. And he said, somebody wants to see you at the stage door. And Elvis said, who do you know in St. Louis? I said, Elvis, I don't know, Soden. He said, go see who it is. Maybe it's one of my relatives or something. So I go out there, and here's that Marine. The Marine with his wife. And he said, Mr. Klein, Elvis promised that he'd let my wife meet him, and he said, maybe get us a couple of tickets to the show. And I'm thinking to myself, you jerk, you know. But anyway, I go back, and I tell Elvis what's going on. And he said, GK, if you go back to that damn stage door, I'm not going to say what he said. He said, but I'm going to beat the crap out of you. And I said, Elvis, I'm not going back there. You leave that jerk alone. So we never went back. The guy never got into the show. But we had a lot of that on the road in the early days. We didn't have many bodyguards. So we had Arthur and Gene, his cousin, and me. We weren't much of a bodyguard group. Then Colonel Parker would hire 2 guys to go with us. But that was St. Louis, and we got a little touch. But that happened in a lot of cities. People wanted to take a shot at him, because of who he was. But ladies and gentlemen, Beverly Brooke is with me today, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring her up to say a few words, because she works for about 6 months on this event. She lives in Little Rock, Arkansas. Where's Robert? Is Robert here, her husband? There is Robert. And they will really help me. They put this event together, do a marvelous job. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Beverly Brooke.
First of all, I want to thank the university for having us here today. These guys running the sound, the videos, and all of this came in on their day off. So, like I say, I just want to tell you thank you. I was going through a bunch of notes the other day, and I came across a couple of quotes from Elvis. One of them is, whatever I become will be what God has chosen for me. Was last night's candlelight service not awesome? I think they got it right this time. Another quote was, I believe in the Bible. I believe that all good things come from God. I don't believe I'd be singing the way I do if God hadn't wanted me to. My voice belongs to God. The lovely flowers that you see in front of the podium today are from the Tankers Fan Club. In case a lot of you don't know, the Tankers was Elvis's very first fan club ever. And we have a representative here today from that fan club, Bobby Boyd. Come on up, Bobby. She's not only a member of the original Tankers, but she's also a professor of psychology from the University of Arkansas at Rhodes. Did you not go to the movies with Elvis a couple of times, you and the Tankers?
Yeah.
Bill's been good, just took me about 3 nights, because I never speak. And we were kind of texting, and she said, be prepared to speak. And then I texted her back the next day, and I said, what do you want me to say? And she said, well, you don't have to speak. So anyway, I'm up here, sort of, but yes, I did get you many times. The Tankers was a fan club that started when Elvis was drafted. And unless you were with Elvis or an Elvis fan, you can't imagine the impact that it had. We were all worried about what might happen. And with Elvis being gone for 2 years and such a new career, you know, it may not have been there when he got back. So Uncle Travis started a fan club. Elvis would end up in the Tankers battalion, and Bear fell on the post with one of the
Right. That's the junction that goes to the
Tankers battalion in the military. So we called ourselves the Tankers.
I did.
And Uncle Travis, one time when I was visiting, because I'm from Milwaukee too, Bear and I went to junior high together, and Uncle Travis asked me to join this fan club, and I did. And we did a lot for Elvis.
Light is on both
And
ends.
we would put flowers on Gladys's grave and visit her grave very often, send pictures and letters and presents to Elvis while he was in the army.
Oh, I'm sorry, remember.
And Elvis never forgot that. When he came back, he repaid us, and you've heard this many times, 1,000 times over. And one of the things was that many Tankers came to Memphis. Elvis wanted to meet them, and whatever they were doing, we were always invited. And so I was very lucky to get to go to the movies with Elvis. I can just echo everything that everyone said here today. But I'm talking from a fan's perspective, because that's what you are. You're an Elvis fan. And you're a fan. He knows you're here today. He knows we're here. And Elvis wanted to always make you feel special. He knew you were part of not just his career, but the influence that now we're all starting to realize he had on the world. And going to the movies, going to the fairgrounds,
Yeah, they are.
was
They
just
are.
a wonderful
Both
opportunity to have one evening to spend with Elvis. And if you were lucky, then you got to be with him just for a little while, with some quiet time. And
Around
you
zero.
would
Yeah,
get
that's
to
what it is.
realize
That's
what
what it
others
is. It's a
have
zero
said
dB, and
today,
the red
and
one's
how
on zero.
a Southern gentleman, very attentive, the most intelligent person
Okay.
that
It
I
is,
ever
it's
had
on
the
fire.
opportunity to spend time with, and he had a very
It's
powerful
on fire.
influence. And trust me, he cares about you that way too. So if you're an Elvis fan,
Let's check. All
spend
right.
some
Now,
time, listen to
actually, I
the
pulled the
music,
red one down a little bit.
and just letting Elvis influence you, because that's what he would have wanted to have done. Thank you so much.
By the way, if any of you all are interested in becoming a member or finding out more information about the Klein'S Fan Club, you can see Bobby after the program today, because there's a website that you can go to. Thank you.
You know, Elvis was Mr. Nice Guy, tried to be nice to everybody. And, but he did have a temper. And man, if he got mad, you better get out of his way. And when Hollywood, California, went all the way to Hollywood, where Elvis went by train then, 57, because we're going to make a movie, Chill House Rock. And Gene and Arthur, the two guys traveling with us, they were up and down the train cars looking for girls, you know, with many girls on the train. So Elvis said, GK, you stay here in this club car with me, this compartment car, and I want you to rehearse. He had two scripts. He said, I want you to rehearse my movie script with me, because you're a radio guy. I said, okay, Elvis, that'd be great, I like that. So we started rehearsing the scripts, and he stopped and he said, let's take a break. And I said, okay, Elvis. He said, GK, I wonder what they think now. I said, what who thinks? He said, the people said that I'd never make it. And I said, like who? He said, well, it was a disc jockey in Memphis. I won't name him. It wasn't Dewey Phillips. It was another guy. He said he advertised for a singer. I went over to see him, sang a few songs, and he said, son, I think you better keep on driving that truck, you know. And he said, I wonder what he's thinking now. So then I said, what else, Elvis? And he said, well, there's a thing called the Arthur Godfrey Talent Scout Show. You people are very, perhaps too young to remember, but it was very similar to American Idol, except it was done by a guy named Arthur Godfrey in New York City. And Elvis didn't have much money then, so they got in one car. He and Scotty, Bill, and DJ, his manager at that time, Bob Neal, and they drove to New York City. And they auditioned for the Ted Mack Show. And I said, Elvis, what happened? He said, well, it was like a cattle call. They gave you a number. I said, all right, number 5, come on out. And he said, I was doing my thing, and I noticed out of the corner of my eye, they were laughing at me because I was moving around and I was singing. And, you know, I said, I can't, that's the way I work. I move around. And he said, they were just kind of giving me a laugh, you know. So he said, when it was over, I said, well, what happens? And they said, don't call us. We'll send you something by mail. So I said, what happened, Elvis? And he said, well, he said, every day for 2 weeks, you get when that met the mailman. Nothing from the Arthur Godfrey Show. He said, but I wonder what he's thinking now. And then, but the big one that really happened, I'll never forget in my life, was the Beverly Hills Hotel. It's one of the most exclusive hotels in Beverly Hills, California. We stayed here while we're making Chill House Rock. And Farron Young, a country singer, I don't know if you remember Farron Young or not, he called the suite. We were in the presidential suite and I answered the phone. He said, who's this? And I said, George Klein. He said, George, would you ask Elvis, I'm in town making back in those days, folks, they made cowboy movies. Not westerns, but they do. Cowboy singers out of Nashville and put him as a lead part in a book like a Gene Autry movie or Roy Rogers movie. Anyway, Farron was making a movie. And he comes up to the suite, and he has this great big guy with him, who I don't recognize. And we sat down, we started talking, and that was like Fair and Young, because early in his career, he had toured with the Fair and Young show, and he said, Fair had been real nice to him. So they started talking, as I said, swapping stories. And finally, Elvis says, guys, I'd love to talk to you, but I got a 7 o'clock call on the movie set tomorrow. And he said, I got to get up early. So, you know, can you please excuse us? So we're walking into the door. This suite that Elvis had was humongous. Biggest presidential suite I'd ever seen in a hotel. We're walking down the hallway, and the big guy, like a bodyguard with Fair and Young, leans over and he says, Elvis, he said, this is my last tour with Fair and Young. Son, he said, you think maybe Colonel Parker can give me a job somewhere? And Elvis called a lot of people cheap. He said, yeah, cheap, I'll talk to him. I'll see what he says. And if he does something, I'll call Fair. The door to the hotel slammed, and Elvis didn't cuss a whole lot. But ladies and gentlemen, I heard him use every cuss word in the book. And especially one cuss word that he never ever used, and that was GD. But he did. And I said, Elvis, what in the world is wrong with you, man? He said, don't you know who that guy was that asked me for a job? I said, no, Elvis, who was it? He says, Jim did. He has a son of a bitch that kicked me off the Grand Opera. Don't I never make it. I said, oh, wow, Elvis, I didn't know that. But Elvis had a long memory. He never forgot, but he's tried to be nice to everybody, you know. But that was what it was all about. Next up is Miss Sally Wilbur. Let me give her an intro. Sally was Sam Phillips's right-hand lady. And she was always there at 706 Union with Sam on those early sessions of Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee, Roy and Elvis and all. And she worked real hard with Sam to take care of his business because they weren't rich at that time. They were just starting out in the record business. And Sally did a whole lot of extra work for Sam. And we all admired Sally for that. And she stuck with Sam to the very end. I say her go Friday, but she was really a secretary and personal friend and personal aide. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Sally Wilbur.
The first thing I'm going to talk about today is Sam Phillips' book. It is due out November the 10th, written by Peter Graumick, who wrote the two Elvis books, Last Train to Memphis and Careless Love. I hope when you come back next year that all of you will have found a way to read this book. I think Peter Graumick spent more hours and days with Sam Phillips when he wrote Elvis's two books and in preparing for Sam's book that anybody has ever spent with Sam. So he got a lot of information on Elvis Presley, and I know you will enjoy reading it, and I hope you will. The next thing I want to talk about is an exhibit that is going to open at the Country Music Hall of Fame on the Sam Phillips and Son Record Company. And it opens to the general public on August the 28th. It will be there for a year. If you're in Nashville, please go by and see it. I know you will enjoy it. Today is August the 16th, the anniversary of Elvis Presley's death. And I'm going to read a paragraph from Peter Graumick's book, Careless Love. But in the end, there is only one voice that counts. It is the voice that the world first heard on those bright yellow Sun 78s, whose original insignia, a crowing rooster surrounded by bodily stylized sunbeams, and a border of musical notes sought to proclaim the dawning of a new day. It is impossible to silence that voice. You cannot miss it when you listen to That's All Right, or Mr. Train, or Blue Moon of Kentucky, or any of these songs with which Elvis continued to convey his sense of unlimited possibilities almost to the end of his life. I thank you. I will see you again. Be safe.
So Sally and I were talking somewhere the other night, and she agreed with me. Sam Phillips didn't get the credit, actually, Sally, that he deserved. He not only discovered Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lewis, Roy Orbison, but he created the rock and roll sound with that Scotty Moore lick on his guitar. Because when Elvis went in that night, he couldn't sing the song Sam had for him, and Elvis started goofing around on That's All Right Mama. And Scotty Moore didn't even know the song, but he jumped in, and in business they call it ad-lib. They fake it or ad-lib, that's what they call it, Mark. If you don't know the song, you just kind of fake it. So they start faking it, and it sounded pretty good. And from there on, that was the beginning of rock and roll. And Sam Phillips was the guy who had the ear enough to take a shot at a guy like Elvis Presley, who was driving a truck at that time. And Sam was inducted into the Rock and Roll of Fame. He's got a lot of adulation, but I wanted to just add my little 2 cents there, saying Sam Phillips was very responsible right style for rock and roll. And over there, he just walked in. We didn't know he was going to be here today. Ladies and gentlemen, sitting next to Sally is a young man that came into Memphis 8 or 10 years ago, and he's not an imitator of Jerry Lee Lewis. This so happens that he happens to sing like him, and talk like him, and act like him. And he's wildly crazy, and he used to do a lot of my Christmas charity shows back in the day, and he's a big Elvis fan too, Jason D. Williams.
Welcome, folks. How you doing? And glad to be here with a great GK. So I got just a 1 minute, 2 minute deal I want to tell about Elvis. Via Jerry Lee Lewis. One time he came over to the Peabody Hotel where I was playing, and he said, "Well, Killer," he said, "I'll tell you what, let's go for a ride." It was about this time of year. Matter of fact, it was exactly this time of year. And he said, "I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go take a little ride through the country." Well, the country was out there in Graceland. So we went up, we got this red Ford with a drop top, and here we had it all. So we got in there, and he said, "Well, we're going to go out that Elvis business." And I said, "What?" And I said, "Okay, well, let's go." So we pulled up the hill, and the guards were there, and they said, "Mr. Lewis," well, first they didn't know who he was. They looked at him and said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I'm going up top this hill." Don't look. It was one of those side streets, you know. So we went up there, and he said, "I don't think you can get up there. I think it's blocked off." "Well, the killer goes where I want to go." And I said, "Oh my God, we're in trouble." You know? So he pulled up there, and there was a blockade up there. Jerry looked out over all those people, and he said, he turned to me, he said, "Mr. D," said, "how many people do you think are there?" God, I couldn't see the end of them. I mean, it looked like 12,000 people, maybe more. I turned to him, I said, "At best, Jerry, it's about 200 people." I wanted to live to see my next birthday. So anyway, he looked over there, and he could tell I was just full of it. And he said, "I'll be damned." He said, "Elvis Presley's dead, and he's still out drawing me." Long live Elvis Presley. Don't tell Jerry Lee I told that story. I want to see my 58th birthday. You have a good week here, and we got one thing about my show we're doing tonight. Right in front of Sun Records. Sally will be there telling stories, and we're going to have a big time. Like the Rockabilly thing? Yeah, Rockabilly Festival.
Yeah, there's a Rockabilly Festival happening. It's going to be right in front of Sun Records, 706 Union tonight. Be a lot of stars there. Be a lot of Rockabilly guys there, right? I'm going to try. You'll be there. And anyway, Sleepy LaBeef, some of the Sun recording artists. You and I were Sun recording artists. Two of us. So, you had two? I had one. Anyway, so
Sonny Burgess, Leaky LeBeat, Dale Watson, a lot of great acts there. Y'all please come down. It's starting now, a car show, got a big beehive contest. But long live Elvis Presley. We love you folks and welcome to Memphis. See you later.
This is very unrehearsed. We don't normally do this. You give me one line of a charity song.
Come back, baby, baby. I heard you do an Elvis song. What can I say? A whole lot of singing. You know all the lines, right? Folks, I love you. And come back, see us, and long live Elvis Presley. Ain't that right, GK? And GK, too. You really good. See you guys.
She lives in Memphis now, and plays around for about 5 or 6 years, and draws a heck of a crowd. We have a lady with us also here today, and she is was one of Elvis's favorite housekeepers and favorite cooks. And she has a lot of nice stories, and I invited her to be with us. She's in a wheelchair. She can't walk too good, but she said, GK, I'm going to be there. One of Elvis's housekeepers is Nancy Rhodes.
Watch for the feedback on the monitor.
Hello, good afternoon to everyone. I'm really glad y'all still coming to keep Elvis' memory alive. And Elvis said he never did think that y'all would continue keeping his memory alive after he passed. But y'all still keeping his memory alive. So thank you all for doing that. So many of you have came so far, and I just thank you for traveling a long way just to keep his memory alive. Well, this is part of his housekeeping, because all the rest of them has passed away, and I'm the only one that's still here, and this part of me is still here. So I'm trying to keep on pushing on. Elvis was very nice. He was a very intelligent person. And he taught me how to say thank you for everything, because I really didn't say thank you for everything. So when I first started there, he was a cook named Daisy, and she met me out on the carport and taking me into the house to meet his auntie and his grandmother. And his dad had later on came in and asked me, was you the new maid? And I told him yes. So he just said, this burning impression was left of him. So Elvis came down a little later on that day because the other maid was fixing his breakfast. And she was so long fixing his breakfast, he came downstairs because he was a little upset because she was so long fixing it. So I told her that I would get in the kitchen and help her, set up the tables and make sure that we tried to get it a little quicker. So I did. I got in there and helped her out some. So he thanked me for that because he was already, he said he was kind of hungry, so he was ready to eat. I have did a lot of things for him. I set up the swimming pool for him and put music down there by the swimming pool. And sometimes by the time I go down there and set it up and put his tan lotion and put his drink out there and put a fan out there, he go down there and turn around and stay a few minutes and come back to the house. And I told him, I said, you didn't stay down there no time. He said, I couldn't stand the hot sun too, so I came on back. I said, okay, you put me through all that trouble. And he told me, he said, look on your paycheck and see who's paying you. I said, well, I don't have anything to say after that. This is a lot of stories. He used to come in from California money that he paid out there in California. So we wouldn't do nothing but just laugh about that. We didn't have anything to say on that. So his favorite food was his breakfast. He liked his breakfast more than he did anything. He would eat that late, like maybe 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. And we would fix like, most of the time, he just had breakfast like an egg omelet with onions in it and bell pepper and cheese in it. And sometimes he'd eat crackers and sometimes he would have biscuits. But most of the time he'd have crackers with him. A glass of orange juice and some coffee. And half a grapefruit would be on there. And one time I was told to take some of his bacon off his plate. Don't give him that much bacon. And I was going to take part of the bacon off, which I did. But since the cameras was over the house, he was upstairs watching. So by the time I got halfway them steps, coming from the kitchen part, he told me, go back and get that bacon. I saw you when you came it out. I just couldn't believe that. So I went back and got it and put it back on the plate and taking it back on them stairs. Yes. So there's a lot of things that he have done. It was funny. I told about a snake one time. It was in a tree out there. And he asked me where was the snake at. I said, right out there in front of the house. He said, you mean that you're watching till I get out there? I said, well, you be too long, the snake will be gone. And he said, I'm coming on. So it took him a long time before he come on out there bare feet was into the jungle. And he got to going and started waving. I said, the snake is gone now. He said, the snake is not out there. He said, yes, I'm gonna shoot that so. But the snake was really gone. So he went on back inside. But one time there was a guy that he was going to talk about Mr. Elvis. And this guy, he was going to be kind of bad. And I told Mr. Elvis, the guy was talking about whooping him. And Mr. Elvis said, well, tell the SO to come on to the gate. He said, I'll be there waiting on him. So the guy didn't have no better sense. He was down there at the gate waiting on Mr. Elvis. Mr. Elvis got out there and whooped your man so fast. And so he didn't know the next time. And then he came back around back upstairs. So I've enjoyed working there, and I just thank you all. I still thank you all for coming. And he wanted to not live till he got up in age, and I can see the reason kind of why, because what go with it isn't too good. Yeah. So I don't have a whole lot to really talk about right now.
Nancy Rook is her name, and I don't know if I should divulge this or not, but I'm going to do it anyway. I was in Memphis Mall about 5 years ago, and I ran into Nancy. And we sat down on one of the benches in the mall, started talking, and she told me a very interesting story. And I wrote it down, and I went home and I put it in my safety deposit box. And if I ever write another book, I may put it in the book. It's a very interesting story. She probably remembers that, but I just don't want to divulge anything like that right now. But Elvis did have, I said, a temper, and we had a rule in Elvis's group, and the rule was that you did not put your hands on Elvis's girlfriend or the date of the girl he was interested in that night at the party. And likewise, he would not flirt with your girlfriend. So we had a rule, don't put your hands on Elvis's girlfriend, he's not going to mess with you. Because he had all the girls that wanted, you know. We didn't have a chance. So all the guys stayed away from him. So we had a couple of new guys in the group, and Elvis liked to go shooting in the afternoon, in the summertime. He'd like to go shoot snakes and turtles and things like that. And just south of Graceland was a big lake. We'd go down there, and there was a starlet in town named Yvonne Lime. I think she had a big part in one of Elvis's movies. We're pretty blonde. And Arthur, who was traveling with us at that time, Arthur lived on the same street as Elvis back in the old days, before Elvis was a recording star. And Arthur's mother and Elvis's mother, Gladys, were big friends. So Elvis hired Arthur as a bodyguard. So it was just me and Arthur and Elvis, and down there in this little farm in South Memphis, North Mississippi, shooting snakes. Well, Elvis wanders off into the woods, I guess, looking for something to shoot. And Arthur walks up, and I felt sorry for him. He walked up, and he put his arms around Yvonne Lime, like to scare her. He's just kidding around. And here comes Elvis. And man, did he get mad. And he had that gun, and he put it up against Arthur's head. And he said, Arthur, I'll blow your cuss word head off. And I said, Elvis, wait a minute. He didn't mean anything by it. He said, shut up, GK, or I'll shoot you too. I said, okay, Elvis, I quit. I give up. But something similar happened to like that once more on the road. But Elvis wasn't going to shoot the guy. But that was the rule we had among the guys. Because if we had a party, a lot of beautiful girls were there, he could have them all, you know. So we waited until I took the Prince of Monaco for Graceland once. And he said, GK. I said, he's a real nice guy, big Elvis fan. I said, yeah, Prince. He said, how did you and all the guys, you have a lot of parties? I said, yeah. He said, well, how did y'all know what girl Elvis was interested in? And I said, well, we would just lay back and, you know, talk to the other girls, and if we noticed on the corner eye that Elvis was hitting on one girl, or she may be the young lady he was interested in, that we made sure we stayed away from her. And Prince of Monaco said, that's the way I did it too. Yeah, his mother was Grace Kelly, his dad was Prince of Monaco. Really a nice guy, and he was really a super individual, really big Elvis fan, Prince of Monaco. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost at the end of our event here today, but we always bring out this. The star is always top billing. And this guy really deserves top billing, because I've known him, gosh, Elvis has been dead now, how many, 37 years? 38. And I think this guy, 38 years ago, he came in from Houston, Texas, to be a songwriter with Chip Smallman, who owned the American Studios. Chips is the guy that produced some of Elvis' biggest hits in the Ghetto, Don't Cry Daddy, Kentucky Rain, one of them this guy wrote, and many more. And so I got with Mark, and he taught me how to write songs, and we hung out, we wrote some few songs. None of them were big hits, but I really enjoyed working with this guy. And just recently, he was elected into the Songwriters Hall of Fame of America. I'm going to tell you, he's a genius when it comes to music. I found out, he didn't brag, but he told me when he was 13 years old, he played lead violin in the Houston Symphony. Man, he can play 13 instruments. And when I found that out, and we was trying to work with him as a writer, I said, Mark, I'll see you later. But ladies and gentlemen, he was one of the writers, and he wrote the hook line on Always on My Mind, which won a Grammy. He wrote Moody Blue for Elvis, and Raised a Lot. He wrote a lot of great songs. But he wrote now, which actually has become mine and a lot of other people's favorite song. Elvis recorded over 710 songs. And I said, this guy wrote what I consider the best Elvis song ever, my favorite song. Ladies and gentlemen, don't tell anybody, but the song is now sold 40 million copies. Up until about a year ago, Now or Never was Elvis' biggest selling record at 14 million. And then the second biggest seller was a combination Hound Dog and Don't Be Cruel, but they were back to back. That sold 10 million. But this guy wrote Elvis's biggest selling record, 10 million copies, and it's so much connected to Elvis. And he's quite a talent in his own right. He used to have a band down in Houston, Texas, and he's going to take some stories, and then he's going to do a song that he's written for a motion picture called, great song, man. It's called Blue Suede Heaven. Yeah. And, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friend, and a great, great talent, Mr. Mark James.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. You know, I'd like to thank George for doing a terrific job all these years keeping Elvis' memory alive. I like to you know, you for Memphis State and everything. You're so great to perform here and speak. You know, somebody said to me not too long ago, said, well, you know, what did he say? He said, so Suspicious Minds, and I hear it was Elvis's biggest single ever. And I said, well, wow, that's great. I said, you know, Elvis had a lot of great songs, a lot of great singles, and I'm just honored to, you know, for Suspicious Minds to be number one. But he did. I mean, Elvis had a lot of songs I loved growing up as a kid, and you know, songs I heard in other places too. But when I came to Memphis, I was from Houston, Texas. I had bands of my own, and you know, I started out in 1959. I started recording myself. First instrumental I had was number one, and I sang on the backside. I said, well, maybe I can write songs. Maybe I can do this, you know. And so I kept going, and I had another hit in Louisiana, a huge hit, biggest single ever in '64, so She's Gone Away. And I got drafted right in the big middle of that. And so when I came out of service, I was offered a job to come to Memphis to keep my artist career going and possibly produce and write songs, do anything. So I came up to Memphis, and so I had a manager that says, why don't you try writing for other people? And so I had never tried that. I said, well, maybe so. Maybe I'll try that. And what came to my mind most of all, I said, instead of one record, I can have 3 records out of one time. And so anyway, but you know, Memphis was a magical town. I mean, golly, I mean, you think of all the people that come out of here. You know, Otis Redding. When I came up here, Otis Redding, Rufus Thomas was here, Isaac Hayes and David Porter. There was Al Green fixing to bust loose in '69, I believe, and then Booker T and the MGs. There's a lot of people performing. They were all natural. You know, you could see them performing in clubs. You said, man, it was kind of natural, you know. And but I had success here. I started out recording like working with B.J. Thomas. I had eyes of a New York woman. And then I really tried to get him out. One I had been trying was Hooked on the Field, and of course that was a big success. And then the same, they were bringing Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley, I had heard, was coming back to American Studios to record. And for me, I think he might have thought he was backing up anyway, because, you know, he had Sun Records and everything here, and he went on with his career and started doing films out in Hollywood. And maybe it was a decision he wasn't sure of, but with George Klein's help and a lot of friends around him, he decided to come back and record. And he booked American Studios for 2 weeks, I think, and he had 40 songs. I didn't know he had 40 songs, but anyway, I was trying to feel something in the air, you know. Sometimes I can sense it, you know, like something was great in the air, like a song. You know, maybe I had already. So I started going through my catalog, trying to write a song too. But I started going through my catalog and said, no, I don't see that. I don't hear nothing there right off that he needs right now, because he needs a certain song right now. And when in '69, you got to consider, you know, rock and roll was not that old yet. And I also had to say, well, Tom Jones is number one now for you know, the rock scene and top 40, because he had a TV show. Elvis had done movie themes and title themes, and he lost footage in top 40. And I said, well, can he come back? And I said, yeah, I think he can. I've been on Elvis, you know. And I also had to say, you know, how old can you be to be a rock sex symbol? I mean, it was kind of early. I mean, you really didn't know. I mean, you look at it now and you say, oh, yeah, Mick Jagger can be 70 years old and tour, but you didn't know that then, you know. But anyway, I've been on Elvis. I tried to write songs for him, and these songs. And I could not come up with anything, not coming in. It was narrowing down. He was coming in about 12 days, 8 days, 6 days. And finally, I was upstairs with Don Cruz, Chip along with Parker at American Studios. And he said, you know, Elvis is coming in. I said, yeah, I know he's coming in. He said, what about the old catalog? And I wasn't thinking about the old catalog like 67 to 68. Because I was just thinking about 68 through 69. 67, 69. And so I was going down the list, and all of a sudden I hit Suspicious Minds. And he said, what about Suspicious Minds? And I turned around and stared at like a sledgehammer at me saying, yeah, that's the song I've been looking for. So that point on, I told everybody around me, including George and all of his friends, I knew a lot of them, and they knew how hard I was working, and I got him, they mentioned it to him, I believe this is a really good one for you. And I went downstairs and where the control was, and I told Chip's mom, and I said, give me a cut this from the smash. You know, bottom line, he's going to want to sing it. If he doesn't want to sing it, no problem, you know, because they do have to want to sing it to get that performance. Never bothers me when a singer passes, because I'm just trying to get something that he wants to sing. But anyway, he came in the studio. Chips played it to him, and he said, let's hear that again. And he heard it again, he asked for a tape, took it home, his solo of it, kept going. And, you know, the rest is history. I mean, it's like, he cut a great record out of it, he had great performance, it was great promotion, RCA knew what they had. And it just was number one in 27 countries, it's a huge hit. And, you know, I used to say Elvis was back, and so was I. but anyway, from that point on, they'd call me, Elvis's people would call me, and I sent him It's Only Love, I sent him Always on My Mind, and I sent him Raised on Rock, and Moody Blue was the last song I sent him. And when he died, Elton Jarvis, his producer, said, you know, Elvis had 7 of these songs he were going to record on his last album. I said, I didn't know that. I said, he had done enough for me. I said, I'd given him 5 songs, and I had 5 singles out of that. You can't get any more to believe that, you know. And so, you know, Elvis was a real star. I mean, I remember one time I had, I don't know how the Moody Blue got to him, but I was working on it as a record myself. And somebody, it got to him anyway. Elton Jarvis called me and said, man, Mark, Elvis wants to record Moody Blue. He could tell that I was kind of surprised that I heard that, and because I was working. He said, Mark, are you working on that yourself or working for yourself? And I said, actually, I am. He said, wait a minute, I'll get back with you. And he got back with me later. He had talked to Elvis, and Elvis said, go ahead and put it out. Mark, go ahead and put it out. If it's not a hit, well, I'll record it. And so that's what happened. I did have a top 5 in South Africa. Anyway, as time went on, George Klein wrote a book called The King of Rock and Roll, and I wrote about 3 or 4 songs, maybe 5, for the movie. And this song here I'm singing is one of the songs that I wrote when I was passed away in the movie. It's called Blue Suede Heaven. So here you go. And if you roll it. Somewhere I know there's a blue suede heaven, a blue suede heaven, a place for the king beyond these tears. In a world From Memphis, Tennessee, brought us joy and gave us hope, kind of built dreams on, gave us songs to sing right along. Oh yeah, rock and roll is living on. Now he's found another day to find so you might waste your time. I remember even when I was over my shoulder. With my rock and roll, my rock and roll dreams, somewhere I go.
See, he's a pretty doggone singer himself. Now, I would be remiss, we all know Suspicious Minds probably know this is, well, it is 40 million copies record. But Mark, he asked him once, I said, Mark, where do you live? He said, well, I got a house and a studio in Nashville, got a home in Los Angeles and a home in Maui. He made pretty good off that Rhodes Elvis record. But I said, well, Mark, why do you still have your place in Memphis? And he said, because I wrote all my hits in Memphis in a penthouse down on the riverfront. And I said, oh, that's unbelievable. But what I want, Mark, come here, Mark. Now, I know he's going to get mad at me. Some singers don't like to do this. Mark, give them your version, about 30 seconds of your version of Suspicious Minds.
Different without the gyrations in the music too. Oh, let's see. Here you go. Well, anyhow, just thought about you said so. I'm caught in the trap. I can't walk down because I love you too much, baby. Oh, I need to see what you're doing to me when you don't believe a word I say. We can't go on together with suspicious minds, and we can't build our dreams on suspicious minds. Won't let us survive. Oh, I drive the tears in my eyes. So let's don't let a good thing die. When, honey, you know I'll never lie to you. No, no, yeah.
He probably will kill me for that, because most songwriters won't do that. They don't, because, Elvis, the guy compared to Elvis immediately, but that's the demo that Mark had a version of it at American Studios, and did put on the program today, but I love Mark. It was a little, you gonna shoot me, you gonna kill me, or what?
On separate records. I had a video made, and George Klein played it on separate records. And did you tell me one time Elvis said one time he was going to have me singing on his record and him singing on my record one time? But anyway, what I was talking about thank you thing is I sat down with Elvis and we talked a bit, and I said, I'd like to thank you for recording my songs through the years, Elvis. I really appreciate it. I said, I want to thank you. And he said, well, he said, well, Mark, I wouldn't record them if I didn't like it. I could tell what George was talking about. But I said, well, it's just something I would say. And he said, well, I can appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate it. But I did ask him a question when I was a kid growing up. He had Big Let's Play House. I love that record, song record. And I said, you remember you performing? And I remember them advertising all the time that you were going to be in Madison Square Garden in Houston, Magnolia Gardens. And they were advertising Big Let's Play House. And I said, do you remember that club down there? He said, Mark, all I remember about that place is a lot of beer bottles flying around. But he was a super guy. I'll say one thing. That, so many singers these days are artists, when I went to Vegas, the Red West took me upstairs and there was a long penthouse, about as long as this room, and Elvis was over in the corner talking to us like Sammy Davis and Andy Williams. I mean, talking to them. Here I am way over here. Most guys, if they have one or two hits, if I was to walk in the room and they say, hey Mark, what's going on? Continue about talking. Elvis, when he saw me, he got up, stopped talking with him, and went clean across the room and said, hey, Mark, how you been doing? Good to see you. And I said, man, I can't believe it. This guy's still singing. I can't believe it. After all his hits and everything. But, he was a super nice guy. And one thing that bothered me, I didn't know this until years later. Some of the musicians would say, Elvis would say at the session, their mail would come in with tapes and stuff like that. And he would say, I didn't learn this till after the death, but he would say, did Mark sing me a song? Did Mark sing me a song? And it's a tape back. Did Mark sing me a song? If I had known that, I would have been there on every session.
Mark James, ladies and gentlemen, a very short songwriter, including the Music Hall of Fame, now Songwriters Hall of Fame. And I remember once I asked him, you go Moody Blue, Moody Blue, which I love the song. And I said, Mark, in Moody Blue, there's a line where you said, when it's Monday, she's Tuesday. And I said, who are you thinking about? He said, my wife. And he's got a great talent. It was a thrill for me we wrote 5 songs together. And I know you guys got to get out of here, but one quickie. Mark and I wrote a song called Loving You is a Natural Thing. I think we wrote it for Ronnie Millsap. Actually, we wrote it for Pat Clark. The Chips Moment had just signed Ronnie Millsap, so we let Ronnie cut it. And it got up on the charts. It got about 50 or 60 on the charts. But Delton Jarvis, who was Elvis's producer, he kind of liked the song. So when he was playing Elvis some new songs that were going to record, he played Loving You is a Natural Thing. And Elvis said, hold on to that song. I kind of like that one. And Belton said, Elvis, you ever wrote that song? And Elvis said, no, who wrote it? He said, Mark James and George Klein. He said, you mean GK was part right on that song? And Belton said, he said, oh, if you put that 8 stack, I'm definitely going to record it. Of course, he passed away, but it was an honor to to know that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. This has been one of the best. And one of the things we've done a long time. I started thanking people who helped me out or leave somebody out. I certainly don't want to leave anybody out. There's a lot of people helping produce this event here today. Thank you so much for coming. I'll see you on Sirius XM Satellite Radio. As I always say, the United States of America has many presidents, but only with one king, you've always seen. Thank you for coming.